Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Welcome to my little YouTube channel. If you're coming back from another video, thanks so much for coming back. And if you're new, hi, my name is Charlene and this is my cozy little YouTube channel where I talk mainly about books, but also about travel and a bit of lifestyle. And today I'm really excited because I'm going to be talking to you about Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. So just before I start digging into the book, I just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody who's been reaching out to me, and we've been chatting in the comments and you've been liking my videos and subscribing and everything. It means the absolute world to me. And also something that I'm really happy, which seems to kind of have connected with a lot of people, is that when I do my book reviews or any videos, I'm always really open about the fact that I'm a slow reader. And at first I wasn't sure if I should mention that because I didn't know if it would put people off, but I thought just be honest about it. I am a slow reader, and I'm really happy because a lot of people seem to be connecting with that, because I think the way that BookTok is and the way that BookTube is at the moment, it makes you feel like if you're not reading a book every couple of days, or you're not reading 20 books a month, or reading from morning till evening, that you're doing it wrong. And you're not. You can, if you enjoy reading, you can enjoy reading at your own pace and at your own leisure. You don't have to rush, you don't have to race, there's no competition, there's no pressure. And I know it really feels like that sometimes, and I think sometimes it kind of takes the joy and the pleasure out of reading a little bit, which really sucks. But if you enjoy reading, it doesn't matter how slow you are, how long it takes you, just, you do you. Enjoy your reading time and don't feel like you need to put any pressure or rush yourself at all. I know it really does feel that way sometimes, but that's what I think anyway. I'm a slow reader. I say most of the time in my videos that I'm not going to be one of those people that you watch that is, oh, I read 20 books last month, or, it's just obscene. I don't understand how these people have lives outside of reading. I have a full-time job, I have lots of things to do, as everybody does. I don't have time to read from the second I wake up to the time I go to bed. I also don't want to rush myself when I am reading and force myself to, I've got to read this amount of pages per day. I enjoy reading. It's my time to myself. It's one of my favourite hobbies. It's the thing I love doing. And so when I'm reading, I want to take my time about it. I'm a slow reader, so it takes me a little while to absorb the words and get a real feel for everything. And I don't want to rush myself. And luckily a lot of you feel the same way. And I just want to say thank you for letting me know, and also for not judging me about it and for connecting with me about it. It really means a lot. But I shall stop blabbering and I will talk to you about Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. So last year was the first time that I'd ever actually read a Grady Hendrix book. And I started off with the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, which I just loved. I read it in summer, and I, tried to find a little bit of time each morning to have a coffee in my garden before work and read a little bit of the book. And I just absolutely loved it. It was Grady Hendrix, if you don't know, is a horror fiction writer. And I really, really enjoyed his style of writing. I found the book really fascinating and interesting, and it kept me super engaged the whole way through. So I loved reading it. So after I read that book, later on in the year, I read a second book by Grady Hendrix, and I read The Final Girl Support Group. And I loved that too. By the way, I scored Southern Book Club 5 out of 5 stars. And The Final Girl Support Group, I scored a 4 out of 5 stars. I still absolutely loved it. It just didn't quite hit the same as the first book I'd read. But I loved it. And it was if you like 90s kind of slasher films or horror films or anything like that, I'd really recommend reading really any of his books. But The Final Girl Support Group was really it really reminded me of Scream or something like that. And basically the premise of it was that, in a horror film, there's always one girl left standing at the end. All of her family and friends are dead, but there's always just one girl left. And so this was a support group for those final girls left at the end of those horror movies. And yeah, it was just super interesting. So I enjoyed both of those books so much that I've kind of been keeping my eye out for Grady Hendrix books and seeing what books he's got coming out and trying to keep my eye on it a little bit. And then I went onto Waterstones one day and I saw that Grady Hendrix had a new book coming out, and it was on pre-order, and it was a Waterstones exclusive edition, and it was signed. So I was like, yes, please. So I've been waiting for this book to come. I think I signed up for it last June or July. So it's been a good like 6-7 months that I've been waiting for this book. So I'm going to show you the cover because I love the cover. And yes, I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but look at the cover. The cover's lovely. So this is called Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. This is the Waterstones exclusive edition. I've seen that they have a different cover in America. I think it's got a lava lamp on the cover. So this is the UK cover and I just absolutely love it. We usually get stuck with the really rubbish versions of the covers, but I love this. I think the black, white and red is so striking. It reminds me so much of like a horror film or a gory horror film. The text at the side, I even love the font of it. I think it's the same font they might use in Stranger Things. But yeah, I love it. I think it's so striking. As well as that, because this is a exclusive Waterstones version of the book, look at this. You got like a little blood pattern dripping down the side, and I absolutely love it. I think it's so cool. And let me just show you very quickly the Grady Hendrix signature. So I've got a signed copy of the book here, which I'm just completely obsessed with. I just think it looks so cool. They've done such a good job on the cover. And as soon as this arrived and I saw it, I thought, I'm gonna love it. Like I just knew already, judging the book by its cover, which you're definitely not supposed to do, but I just knew that I was gonna love it. So I'm just going to read you a couple of facts about the book before I get into what I thought about it. So I'm just looking on Goodreads to give you the average rating review on Goodreads, the average score, and it's 4.17. And I think that, you know, for Goodreads, I feel like people are a bit tough on Goodreads. I think that's a really good score. And there are 496 pages. So I'm just going to read you the blurb quickly. They call them wayward girls, loose girls, girls who grew up too fast, and they're sent to Wellwood House in St. Augustine, Florida, where unwed mothers are hidden by their families to give birth in secret, put their babies up for adoption, and most important of all, forget any of it ever happened. 15-year-old Fern arrives at the home in the sweltering summer of 1970, pregnant, terrified, and alone. There she meets a dozen other girls in the same predicament. Rose, a hippie who insists she's going to keep her baby and escape to a commune. Zinnia, a budding musician who plans to marry her baby's father. And Holly, barely 14, mute and pregnant by no one knows who. Every moment of their waking day is strictly controlled by adults who claim to know what's best for them, until Fern meets a librarian who gives her an occult book about witchcraft, and suddenly power is in the hands of the girls for the first time in their lives. Power can destroy as easily as it creates. It is never given freely. There's always a price to be paid, and it's usually paid in blood. So like I said, this is quite a chunky book. I think it was 496 pages, and it took me about 2 weeks to read as a slow reader. That doesn't seem too slow to me, but I was also, at the same time as reading it, I was also listening to the audiobook on Audible. So I downloaded the audiobook to have alongside the book, because it is quite a chunky book, I knew it was going to take me some time to read. So I would read in the evenings before I went to bed, and like maybe on my lunch break and things like that, and I would listen to the audiobook whenever I got a chance, like, you know, if I was just getting ready or out and about walking my dog, anything like that. So that's how I got through it in a couple of weeks. So if you are a slow reader too, I'd highly recommend doing that. I actually love doing that, reading and listening to the audiobook at the same time, because I feel like when I do that, it kind of puts me way more in the zone of the book and in the mindset of the characters and things like that. So that's what I did to get through it in about 2 weeks. So obviously the blurb gave quite a lot of information about the book, like a good overview, but I'm just going to give you a little bit more detail so that you can see if you're wanting to read the book for yourself. I want this to be spoiler free, so I won't give too much away, but I just want to give you enough information so that you can get a feel for the book and decide whether you want to have a read of it. So we read this book from the perspective of the main character, who's called, I think it's pronounced Never. I was pronouncing it Never in my head, and then when I listened to the audiobook, it's Never. But Never is a 15-year-old girl in America And this book is set in the later 1960s, early 1970s. And at the time, when younger girls, unwed girls, got pregnant, it was a very horrendous time in history where they basically carted these girls off into homes to hide from their friends and family the fact that they were pregnant. And so what would happen is their friends and family would basically force them to go to these homes to cover up the fact that they were pregnant. They would spend their entire pregnancy at these homes, and at the end of the pregnancy, they would basically be forced to give their babies up for adoption. Horrendous, absolutely horrendous. So basically, Neva, the 15-year-old, she is pregnant, and her family finds out and they respond really, really badly to it. So they cart her off to this home in Florida. It's called Wayward House, and it's run by this lady called Mrs. Wayward. Her father set it up and she's carried it on from him. And there are other staff there. There's a nurse and a doctor, and basically when Neva gets there, she is just completely like gobsmacked. There's just like loads of girls her age and younger who are pregnant, and they're just treated like a complete afterthought, and like, you know, any of their wants and wishes don't matter. So as soon as she gets there, she's forced there. She's obviously terrified and definitely doesn't want to be there, but she's forced to be there by her family, especially by her dad. When she gets there, she meets some of the girls and some of the staff, and one of the first things that happens when you get there is that they change your name. I think that that's to kind of protect your privacy and to give you like a cover story for who you are while you're there, and then afterwards you can just go and live your life as if nothing ever happened. Not going to be possible, but you know what I mean. That's the plan. So Neva is the main character, but we know her as Fern. So as soon as she gets there, she's named Fern, and all the girls are given these like floral garden type names. And there's lots and lots of girls at this home, but the main ones that Fern connects herself with are Rose, who is a bit of a kind of wild child, free-spirited hippie. There's Holly, who is a mute, only 11-year-old, very tiny, frail, quiet, scared little girl. And there's Zinnia, who is a budding musician, and she is there because she has got pregnant by her boyfriend, who she is planning to marry. So basically, the story then follows everything that's happening in this home, the way the girls are treated. And it was just absolutely horrendous to read, because you realise that like this is not just a fictional story. This actually happened to women around that time, and that was just absolutely horrendous and made me emotional in a few places. But yeah, so the girls are at the home and they have very little perks. They just have to clean the house and do everything they're told, have very invasive doctor's appointments, and are just absolutely not listened to whatsoever. But one of the very few perks that they do have is that every few weeks there is a mobile library that pulls up with a lady librarian in it. So when this, you know, mobile library comes, they're obviously absolutely ecstatic, because like there's nothing to do in the home. So it is the main thrill of their time there to get a new book. So Fern goes in and she talks to the librarian, who's called Miss Parsay, and she is given a book about witchcraft, which at first she just thinks is any ordinary book. As she's reading it, she starts to realise that this isn't any ordinary book. It's changing and it's moving and it's an adapting book, and it's real witchcraft, it's real magic. So her and those three other friends start to look further into the book, and they start to do some of the spells and some of the magic. And what happens from there, it's like two stories running alongside each other. On the one hand, you've got the story of the girls and their pregnancy, what is happening to them, you know, their appointments, the point where it comes where they have to give their babies up for adoption, which is just heartbreaking. But also at the same time as that, there's another storyline running alongside it, and that is about witchcraft and magic and the power that these girls find within themselves. I won't give away too much more than that, because that's already quite a lot of information, but it's not giving away really anything about the story. So yeah, the story goes on. We follow the girls' pregnancy, we follow the girls' journey with witchcraft and magic, and what happens throughout the book, you can just not really imagine what's going to happen. There's so many twists and turns. There's so many things that happen. There are places where it's explosive and epic. There are places where it's a bit kind of more daily and mundane. But you know, as a whole, the book was so very interesting and exciting to read, and never once when I was reading it did I feel like, oh, this is a bit of a slug. Like, I enjoyed it the whole way through. Some of the themes that run for this book are pregnancy, obviously, like I've said, kind of like you get the feeling of hopelessness, and these girls are very much in a position of where everybody has power over them. There's also like a very strong feminist feel to this book, I felt like. Even though it's written by a man, I felt like it could have been written by a woman, or at least this man seems to be like a feminist and seems to understand women's issues and bodies and the things that they have to go through, at least in this time. Obviously, a lot of research has been done, but it feels like a very feminist book because these girls are all in a position where they've lost any power within their lives whatsoever. They have no say over anything. They're being told at every turn by everybody else what to do. And they're the only ones paying the price for what's happened to them. The men that are involved in the baby making process have got absolutely no part to play whatsoever. So it feels like a very feminist book because it's pointing out these injustices and the things that women had to face, especially in this time. It's also about friendship, about witchcraft, and also I think it's a really timely book because obviously everything that's going on in America at the moment with the Roe versus Wade and the abortion laws and all of that nasty stuff that's going on, this seems to be timed very well because it's kind of about that before any of those laws were made in the first place. So regardless of what side of that you sit on, I think it's a very timely book. Like I said, it does feel very feminist, and I thought, like, is that okay? Like, because it's obviously like written by a man, and he's writing about like pregnancy and women's bodies, and some of these girls in the home are very young, so there were points where I was like, is that okay? That's made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. But overall, I think the whole point is to display that and to show the injustices that these women faced and all of the things that happened to them. So I think it's fine. I love Grady Hendrix writing as well. Like I've talked about previously in this video, I love some of his other books. I think he's a great writer. I find his writing really easy and interesting. And yeah, I just found that really interesting that it does feel very feminist, yet it's written by a man. I do think there may be a couple of trigger warnings as well for the book. So like if you're umming and ahhing about reading it, if you've dealt with any issues surrounding like pregnancy or anything like that, maybe it's not the one for you. Also, it can be very, very gruesome in places. So if you're a bit squeamish or you don't like gore and gruesome things, not for you. Also, I just feel like if you are pregnant and you're feeling a bit nervous about your childbirth, maybe give it a miss until you've given birth. So I would say those are the only real trigger warnings. But yeah, it does deal with actually some very serious subject matters in the book. So yeah, just maybe have a look forward into it if you are planning on reading this book. Just make sure that it's okay for you. So I've probably rambled on for way too long there, but I really enjoyed reading the book overall. I thought it was a really fascinating read. I love, any of you who've watched any of my other videos will know, I love a book about witchcraft and witches. So I knew that I was going to love this book. I love it. I love the cover. I love the writing. I love the story. I really, really enjoyed this book. I didn't quite enjoy it as much as the Southern Book Club, which I gave 5 out of 5. So I think I'm going to settle on a 4 out of 5 for this book. But it was a great horror fiction book. I really enjoyed it. If that's your kind of thing that you like, or you're interested by witches or anything like that, then definitely give this a read. So thanks so much for watching this video. If you've read this book, please let me know, spoiler free, in the comments what you thought. Did you get the same kind of vibes as me? What did you rate it? What did you score it? Did you enjoy reading it? How long did it take you? Are you a fast reader, a slow reader? What's going on? Let me know. I would love you forever and ever if you would like this video and subscribe to my little channel. And I will look forward to talking to you in my next video about my next book. And until then, just, yeah, be in touch. Thank you so much for watching. Speak to you soon. Bye.